Welcome Classic Rock fans to an episode of Beneath the Covers, and today we're delving into that pantheon of classic and iconic album sleeves to look at perhaps what is the most iconic of album sleeves, which is this one. Needs no introduction. Photographed in 1969 and forms the cover of the famous Abbey Road album, and I introduced it anyway. This photograph was shot outside Abbey Road Studios, St John's Wood, on the 8th of August 1969. It was taken by photographer Ian Macmillan on his Hasselblad camera. He'd set his stepladder in the middle of the road. The police had stopped pedestrians and traffic moving to and fro for this moment. And he took 6 photographs. The 5th photograph was the one that was actually used for the album sleeve. Now, Ian Macmillan wanted the Beatles to walk across the road in like a perfect V formation. And as I said, it was only that one photograph that was just perfect. Abbey Road's main claim to fame, of course, before the Fab Four, was the fact that it's only a stone's throw away from Lord's Cricket Ground. The crossing is actually situated on the southernmost point of Abbey Road at the junction of Grove End Road in the St John's Wood area of northwest London. This LP certainly puts that location on the map, and this was just known as the EMI Studios. That would later become known as the Abbey Road Studios after the Beatles. And of course, millions of people have made that pilgrimage to cross that famous crossing, and there's been numerous parodies, of course, perhaps the most famous being the Red Hot Chili Peppers with their odd use of socks. My favourite, of course, is the Peanuts parody. The main idea for the photograph came from Paul McCartney, who had sketched out plans for the album cover prior to this. I think it's fair to say that McCartney seems to have been the main creative force or drive in the Beatles from 1966 onwards, him and George Martin. But a number of ideas had surfaced as regards the name of the album. One of the names that was floated, Jeff Emerick, I think, suggested calling the album Everest after his favourite brand of cigarettes. But I believe it was Paul McCartney. I think it was John Colander remembers that one of the Beatles, likely Paul, saying, "Look, I can't be bothered to schlep all the way to the Himalayas for a cover. Why don't we just go outside and take the photo there and call it Abbey Road? Why don't we do it in the road, so to speak?" Look at it this way. I mean, it saved thousands of Beatles fans all that airfare having to go all the way over to the snow-capped Himalayas for that iconic Beatles shot. As well as Ian Macmillan, of course, Linda McCartney was there snapping away. And it's her photographs that add some depth and colour to the event. Of course, one of her famous pictures shows the Beatles kind of getting themselves ready to cross, things like that. So her pictures, I think, are so vital in framing the event of this day. John Lennon, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr wearing suits designed by Tommy Nutter, who was a Welsh designer. A bit of trivia for you: Tommy Nutter went on to design the suit worn by Jack Nicholson as the Joker in that iconic Tim Burton film from 1989, I think it was. George, of course, wanting to assert his own voice, decided to roll up in double denim. According to designer John Kosh, the reason why McCartney's barefooted is that he decided to kick his shoes off due to the fact it was too damn hot. McCartney had actually rolled up to the photo shoot wearing sandals. He lived just around the corner from St John's Wood at this juncture. On this day, John, George and Ringo were putting the finishing touches to I Want You, She's So Heavy in the studio, while Paul was working on Oh Darling, which is arguably perhaps his most powerful vocal performance in the Beatles. That is before they stepped out of number 3 Abbey Road to do the deed and take the photograph. Interestingly, the last session to actually see the Beatles in the studio together was the 20th of August 1969. It's interesting that the photo shows the band walking away from Abbey Road, walking away from the studios. Abbey Road Studios is the white building on the left of the picture. I mean, I think you can just see it through the trees there. So that's quite interesting. I don't know how many of you have trekked over to Abbey Road and crossed that crossing. I certainly have. And the band presented an album sleeve that didn't actually have their name on it. According to John Kosh, he said EMI were furious about that. But he did go on to say they're probably the most famous, iconic band in history. People sure know what they look like. And the back cover is also intriguing. It's iconic, if I may refer to my notes. Anyone looking for the street sign that's pictured on the back cover of Abbey Road will have a tough job. The location of the sign was the other end of the road, at the junction of Abbey Road and Alexander Road, near to the South Hampstead station. Interestingly, that area was actually redeveloped in 1972 for a housing estate, if I'm not mistaken. As regards this was pieced together through various pictures of street signs putting the letters together, and the effect, putting the crack through the S, was added later as well for greater authenticity. The girl in the blue dress was an accident. She just walked by as they were taking the photograph. Apparently Macmillan was quite annoyed about that, but later decided to keep it in. I think absolutely right. I think it adds a sense of movement and drama to a very staid photograph, really. I really like it. It's a bit like that woman walking by in that famous Neil Young album sleeve photo shoot for After the Gold Rush. Might even be the same woman. Who knows, eh? And of course the whole Paul is dead conspiracy was raging at the time. According to my notes, it was late 1969 that this theory started doing the rounds, and all the clues apparently are in the sleeve. For example, I'm sure you've heard this story before, the theory states that McCartney was killed in a road accident in 1966 and is actually replaced by a look-alike. And all the clues are wrapped up in this cover. For example, the first clue is that Paul is walking barefooted and is out of step with the other Beatles. The white Volkswagen bears the number 28 if. Paul would have been 28 if he'd survived. He'd actually just turned 27 apparently, so I'm not sure that's true. The police van on the cover is usually seen at traffic fatalities. And the four Beatles represent a funeral, of course. You've heard that one with George as the gravedigger, Paul as the corpse, Ringo as the congregation, and John as the priest, or maybe Ringo as the undertaker, I'm not sure, in this silly story. Nevertheless, it's a story that's been doing the rounds for a number of years. As John Lennon said in the song How Do You Sleep, those freaks was right when they said he was dead. Indeed, indeed. Interestingly, this Abbey Road session wasn't the last Beatles photo shoot. They actually reconvened in Ascot. I think it was John Lennon's house in Ascot for a photo shoot. It was the last piece of pictorial Beatles business. The four got together Friday the 22nd of August 1969. Was Yoko Ono, Linda McCartney was there, and some of the pictures that were taken at this session were used on the cover of the Hey Jude compilation LP. No, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this album sleeve and some of the stories that surround it. It is, of course, as I said at the beginning, perhaps one of the most iconic of sleeves. One that just seems so natural and spontaneous rather than the pained montage of Sgt. Pepper. No disrespect to Peter Blake, of course. Hope you're all well, being healthy and staying safe, but more importantly, of course, is that you keep listening. Look at you.